There's a lot of misinformation out there right now of whether or not there's antibiotics in your milk. I can guarantee you that no matter what the label says in the store, there's no antibiotics in your milk, whether it says antibiotic free or not. There's just no antibiotics in your milk, period. Now on the farm here, we do occasionally use antibiotics, but we try to keep our animals healthy so we can really limit the use of them. But these are a few common types that we use. These here are antibiotic tubes. This one here is a lactating cow antibiotic tube. That is for if a cow gets a mastitis infection. It goes right up in the udder and treats it. Okay, on the side of each tube and on the outside of the box that they come in, it does list the residue warning. I know it's blurry on camera here, but it's 72 hours after the last treatment, you have to dump the milk. Now this is a dry cow treatment tube here. So when our cows reach the end of their lactation, which is about 2 months before they calve, we dry them off, which means we quit milking them. So when we dry a cow off, they get one of these tubes. It's a long-lasting antibiotic, which just basically kind of helps keep them from getting mastitis from the sudden change of going from being milked every day to not being milked. Now this also has a residue warning, and it's basically 30 days. So if the cow is dry longer than 30 days, this antibiotic should be out of their system. But no matter what the label says, we test every cow anyway. Now this is an Oxy Tetracycline, and here again it has a residue warning. I know it's hard to see, but the milk residue is 96 hours. But again, we don't take the label by face value. We test all of our milk at home because, for one thing, our son Justin, he's allergic to penicillin. So we drink our milk right from the bulk tank, and if we had treated milk in the tank, he would have a very severe allergic reaction, which of course leads to a trip to the hospital. So we take antibiotics serious around here, and we make sure that we aren't putting antibiotics in our milk.
As Jen said before, all of our milk from any cows that we treat with antibiotics, we test before that cow is even milked into the tank. And this is the tester we use. This is a Delvo test, and it takes 3 hours to get a sample tested. Now we're going to do here, we have just some plain milk out of the tank with no antibiotic in it. So we're going to run one sample with that, and then we are going to add this polymast, which is a mastitis antibiotic treatment. We're going to mix that in and run another sample with that so you can see the difference. Now our tester is preheated to 64 degrees, and it'll hold that temperature for the 3 hours that it takes. Take a small sample out of here, put that in this vial, and we'll set that in number 1, and that will be the non-antibiotic test. And we will take and put some antibiotic in here. We'll mix that up good so it's mixed in there well. We'll get a good sample. Have that in there, and we'll put that in number 2, and the number 2 one is the one with antibiotic in it. Now in 3 hours, that will tell us which one is good and which isn't.
Okay, so it's been 3 hours. So now we're going to check our samples to see if they're positive or negative for antibiotics. Now remember, sample number 1 was the one right out of the bulk tank, so it should be negative. And it is. You see it's turned kind of yellow. And then sample number 2 was the one that we put antibiotics in. And that one is very purple, so that is a positive test for antibiotics. Now the way that we can tell the samples being a positive or a negative is the color change. Now the reason it changes is because of the gel at the bottom of the tubes. That gel has bacteria spores in it, and if there's antibiotics in the milk, it will prevent those spores from growing when they're incubated, so it stays purple. But if there's no antibiotics in the milk when it's incubated, they had a chance to grow, so then it changes to that yellow color. So if we had a milk sample from a cow that we treated and it turned out like this with the purple, we would continue to dump the milk from that cow. But if we had a sample like this where it's yellow, then we know that that cow is completely clear of antibiotics and she can go back in the tank. Now again, we sample our milk here on the farm just as a precaution because, like I said, our son Justin is allergic to penicillin and we drink our milk right out of the bulk tank. But creameries also test the milk. As soon as a truckload comes into the creamery, they test that for antibiotics. If that load tests positive, they will dump the entire load, and then the farmer responsible for sending the contaminated milk, they have to pay for the entire load of milk that's wasted. So it's a very serious deal, and it's very non-economical to send in bad milk. Plus, like I said, it's just a safety hazard overall for people with allergies to antibiotics, like our son. So the moral of the story here is that all milk is antibiotic free. So if you hear misinformation saying that there is antibiotics in your milk, you can know firsthand from a farmer that there's no antibiotics in your milk. We're going to set the record straight right now. There's no milk in your milk.